Happy Disability Pride Month, everyone. My name is Nico Meyering, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with blonde hair, large dark glasses, wearing a light blue shirt, seated in front of a purple background. And I have with me today Blaise. Blaise, go ahead and say hello.
Hi, I shouldn't say good afternoon. Hi, Nico. It's very nice to be here and wonderful to meet you and your audience.
It is wonderful to meet you as well. Blaise, what does disability pride mean to you?
Disability pride means so many things to me. I'll try and distill this down into two or three. The first is identity.
Mhm.
To me, identity is such an essential part of it. Now, I am someone who is completely blind. I have a seeing eye dog. His name is Flash. Um, it's very obvious when I'm somewhere that I have a disability because unless you're blind as well and you don't see it, yeah, you're it's pretty obvious that I have a disability. So by that alone, it makes it easier to have, at least for me it does. It's easier to have pride because it's not something that you have to hide, and frankly, there should be no shame in having a disability. No one should ever feel that way, at least for an extended period of time. Of course, we all have things in life where we would love to be quote unquote able bodied, but the reality is that's not something that's readily achievable for us. So, identity is the first thing. Second thing is being able to have the life experiences that I do. I mean, I was born completely blind. I don't know anything else. So I'm able to, read braille and use assistive technology such as screen readers on both the computer and my Apple devices. I mean, that's stuff that I am sure that I never would have wanted or felt like I needed to use had I been born either able bodied or born with sight. Um, and third, I've made some long lasting friends that I've ended up working for, well, now two of them. The first being Denise Donato, who connected us, Nico,
That's right.
and now my dear friend and boss, John Robinson, with Our Ability. We are a tech company that essentially matches businesses to people with disabilities. So I don't, or I should say it this way, I know for a fact that I would not have had this rich of a life if I did not have a disability.
Wonderful. That was a very well organized answer, Blaise. Thank you. What
Thank
is
well, I appreciate that because I'm really not that organized.
okay? Yeah, me either. It is an ongoing battle to stay organized. What is one thing you want non-disabled people to know about disability life?
One thing that I want non disabled people to know about disability life, this honestly is one of the hardest questions and best questions I've been asked because, frankly, there are so many.
Of course.
If there is one, it'd have to be that people with disabilities are just as capable as people without disabilities. We just have to do things a little bit differently. I mean, heck, when you boil it all down, and maybe this is because I've listened to way too much George Carlin in my life, but don't all of us have different ways of doing things? Because we, we live by the necessity of what we need to do. And it's important that people with disabilities I think in turn understand as well that, unfortunately, we have to deal with the issues of breaking down the barriers of ableism.
Mhm.
To me, there's no bigger obstacle than ableism. So it's a matter of, you know, twofold thing of people without disabilities need to realize that disabled people are equally capable, and also two, that people with disabilities need to help people without disabilities break down that barrier, because that's the only way true equity is going to be achieved.
I really like a lot of what you said. I concur with you that dismantling ableism is going to take work from our disabled community and then also our abled allies. I recognize that historically it has been pretty much solely on the backs of disabled people to dismantle ableism. So I'm eagerly looking forward to our allies joining us in that fight.
Yeah, otherwise, Nico, the alternative is the wall just gets higher, the barrier gets more difficult.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but people with disabilities need to at the very least accept that this is a reality,
Mhm.
and make whatever effort they feel comfortable with to break that down.
Wonderful. Tell me, Blaise, what are some lessons that you learned from being disabled?
Some lessons that I've learned. Well, I mean, one is etiquette.
Mhm.
I am a firm believer in etiquette. For example, I if I am in a room with people who are wheelchair users, or in a room where people are sitting and I'm standing, then I will make it a point to sit, because to me it's very condescending to be towering over someone,
Mhm.
which even if I were standing up, I'd never be accused of towering over someone. I'm just 5'6". So unless it's a classroom full of elementary school kids, then I'm likely, not towering over anyone. But the that's such an important thing, because you don't want people craning their necks to talk to you. You don't want to be literally looking down on someone to talk to them. Like, level etiquette to me is so important. And even as a person who's blind, that being on the same level is important, so that you're more in my ear. Not that I have hearing loss, at least yet. Though my fiance may debate that, but that's an entirely different thing. Um, it's it's just essential, and something that does not get the conversation that it should. Another lesson has to do with advocacy
Mhm.
and standing up for what you believe in. And I think we need to modernize our advocacy to say that it needs to be more do what you're able to do, not show up, for these particular things. And, we need all these big crowds, when it feels, when the need is most urgent. If we have sustained collective advocacy, kind of like the PBS model, or the public broadcasting model, I should say, when they're doing their pledge drives, do what you can. That's what we really need to stress in our advocacy, especially because of the pandemic. No one is doing their best. No one has been doing their best for the past 2+ years.
Mhm.
So it's important that we as a community acknowledge that, and give people the space to have them do what they're able to do, even if it's not as much as others.
I really like what you said there. It is very important to start where you are and do what you can. you make a good point about sustained advocacy and showing up day in and day out versus being there for the big splashy moments when everybody else is there. And ultimately, the way that we do maintain that momentum is putting in the work every day. It can be grueling, it can be monotonous, it is almost definitely unglamorous, but it's also necessary.
Right, and it's becoming increasingly necessary. Nico, in my last job, I coordinated a lot of our advocacy
Mhm.
efforts for the company Denise and I used to work for, and the company that I receive home care services through uh, currently. And it was amazing to me how many people were not willing to show up, and only a handful were.
Mhm.
And I cannot stress the importance of, being there. If it's making phone calls, that's what you're comfortable and able to do. Fantastic. Emails, tweets, whatever you're able to do. And it's, I really feel that the days of, long protests and sit-ins and whatnot, I feel like those days either are over or will be over soon, because, well, frankly, there are more ways to advocate, and that's a good thing.
Yes, I think that is a good thing. I am someone who had done a lot of work with the Occupy movement back in the early 2010s. And I remember community leaders in that space looking down upon people who would just tweet a link or who would sign a petition. They called it slacktivism. But what I like more is this vision that you've offered, where we start where we can start and we do what we can. That's important for disabled advocacy, especially because there are some of us who are more home based and not able to go out in public. There are people who don't have the energy to make those larger actions, but what they can do is be an online presence. So it's all quite valid.
Right, or even if you don't have internet, because let's face it, access to technology and resources for people with disabilities, because we are statistically the uh, poorest minority group.
Mhm.
I mean, you pick up the phone, make a call, and if you're not able to look something up, reach out to someone who can get you that information, and and that way you can do what you need, because knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power indeed. Lastly, Blaise, what are some things that you had to unlearn as a result of your disabled experience?
I don't know,
Okay.
because the reason I don't know, Nico, is because I was born with my disability.
Okay.
I did not, you know, I I was born completely blind. I have a condition called bilateral microphthalmia, which essentially was because I had cysts on my eyes that stunted their development.
Mhm.
So being being born with your disability, everything that you learn is is because of your disability, or you just living life in general. I mean, people, I guess if there is one thing, I just thought of it. People would ask me all the time, well, would you ever want to see? And I would say no, because then I would have to learn how to read and write
Mhm.
in print, which then I think would force me to, um, I think I would unlearn patience. So I guess I'm answering your question in a weirdly reversed way, but that's the best way that I can answer it.
This is actually a very interesting answer and not one that I had thought of. And I really appreciate your take on it. So it's not a bad answer by any means.
Well,
Blaise,
sure, sure. I mean, and if do you want me to expand on that, or?
if you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'll give you a perfect I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, I get, I mean, I in our house right now. I mean, we have a I call them a flat top stove because you can't feel the burners, even
Mhm.
though it's a um, but so it's and because of that, I need help, with meal preparation and whatnot.
Sure.
So I guess what I've had to learn more than anything is patience. Because my goodness, anyone will tell you that I have the patience of a 3-year-old. I really do. But learning patience has been more important than unlearning anything.
That is very well put. Thank you.
Sure.
Blaise, where can people find you online? Do you have any big projects coming up?
Well, yeah, I host and produce a podcast. It's called the Blazin Access Podcast, Blaisin apostrophe Access Podcast. Of course, it's a little play off of my name, and it's a bi-weekly podcast. Every 2 weeks, I talk about disability issues and really my way of advocacy right now, and it's one that I had been working toward, and I'm very comfortable in this platform, is using my podcasting abilities and my background of broadcast journalism to promote or help people tell their story and promote the work that people with disabilities are doing. Um, or I mean, for example, I want to do a podcast about the Americans with Disabilities Act and where we need to go from here, because I'm very sick and tired of the narrative of, oh wow, it's the 32nd anniversary of the ADA. Whoa, cool. Let's celebrate. I'm done with that, Nico, because there's so much progress that needs to be made.
Mhm.
So yeah, Blaze and Access Podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcast. Facebook.com/Blazin Shows, Blaisin Shows. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Just search Blaise Bryant, and you'll be able to find me.
Thank you for your time, Blaise. I found your responses poignant and you've given me a lot to think about. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, my friend.
Nico, pleasure's mine. I'd love to have you on my show sometime.
Oh, I'd love to be there.
All right.
All right.